Good Simple Living. Good morning. I'm Tim from T Squared Design Builder, and you know me as Go Build It Better. And I was watching your show last night, your last live, and we talked about it snowing. And again, it snowed again last night, but I'm in Colorado, not Idaho. But I wanted to send this to you. I finally figured out some way that I can, and it's just some work that I did since Melissa, since you asked. I know that you didn't ask me exactly, but since I already did some of this work, I thought some of this stuff might be pertinent to you guys and just good enough to look at and on the plans for your house. And I know, Melissa, that some people insulted you, and I certainly don't want to do that, but maybe some of these things might be something worth looking at and might even help you out. Oh, yeah, we've got snow. I did look at this, and I had some things catch my attention, and I wanted to address that. Now, I realize I don't know you guys at all. I don't know your wants and needs and your wishes or your lifestyle, but I'm going to talk to you like I do. But this is going to be my reinterpretation of this house. So the first thing I did is put in SketchUp, scale to the measurements you gave. One of the first things I noticed, well, you know what? We'll come back to this. So let's look at your house. Oh, you know what? We're going to need an orchard and a barn, just arbitrary measurements, just for some scale. And looking at this, now, I don't know much about you guys or commonality that we have except for a faith in Christ. When I put this roof on here with the porch, I kind of thought that was kind of interesting. One of the first things I did is, you may have different ideas on this, was this is an 8/12 pitch on both the bedroom sides. Now, over the kitchen and the living room, I have a 12/12 pitch. I know you guys mentioned doing some timber frame, and not exactly sure what you had in mind on that. I do have some ideas on that. I just saved some people $60,000 by making some recommendations on their timber frame where they could use brackets rather than the traditional mortise and tenon and peg. That is true craftsman, but it's very expensive, and it's affected several of the builds that I've worked on before. Now this one, being a scissor truss, gives you a little bit more headroom, and of course this is not in a 12/12, but it could be. Now this is a 12/12 pitch. Now there's a couple of things with the roof that I want to point out here, being an 8/12 and a 12/12 because of the width differences. Now the valleys right here, they do collect a lot of the snow and the ice, and that's going to be a fact. But I want to show you here at the peak. When you have varying pitches coming together, you do not want them all coming together in the same point. Disregard that line right there, because there's so many different angles coming in all together. It's hard to waterproof it, whether it be composite shingle or metal roof. It's hard to do this with all these angles coming together at one time to make all those connections. Now here with the 12/12, it's a little bit higher. That's what you want, so you can have a ridge cap that protects that, and then separate. You do not want those to be exactly the same height. Just one thing I wanted to show real quick. Now, with this software, I'm able to look at dates and the sun. Now, here's one thing you should pay attention to, and if you haven't thought about this. Okay, we're looking at, say, noon o'clock on every day, and I'm going to go through this every month. We're going to start in January, and I want you to look at this roof right here and where the shadow is on this side of the house, this being the porch. And from January, it will be April before they get to see any sunlight at all. And that's going to be a problem because it's your valleys where your water, your freeze thaw builds up, and the sun is not ever going to hit it. So from the month of April till September, it will get sun. But from September, the rest of the months, you will have shadow on these areas right here. Some of these areas will never see sunlight. This being the north side of the house where the entryway is for the mudroom. And I know you had spec'd that you wanted to put the main entry door right here to the north. I'd advise against that because that is going to be slick and frozen for months on end. Both of your accesses to your house are going to be frozen. Now, I do recommend that you put a gable over your mudroom rather than a shed roof because it'll just run down your back and block your way. And at least with the gable, it will divert the snow to the sides. Kind of a complaint without a solution, I think, is a waste of time. So a recommendation that I would make is that you make your front door somewhere here accessing your front porch. It's covered and you can utilize that all the time. Whereas here to the north, it will be covered up with snow and snow will pile up right here. You also showed something where you want the girls' room to have maybe a French door, sliding glass door, like your master bedroom. And I'd recommend against that also because of the freeze thaw and the buildup of snow right here. I think the threshold is going to leak on you is really the deal. I would put a big window to resolve that issue. Well, this is actually at noon of every day of the year. All right, let's get to something else. I want to, let's get rid of this roof and we'll start looking at a floor plan. Let's go back to that original floor plan. Some of the things I noticed were lack of closet, and let's go to the scale version. And so the bedrooms, they're lacking in closets, both the boys and the girls. And then also yours, I'm looking at that too. I want to do a comparison to another plan, but right now one of the things I saw was a 7.5-foot shower. Maybe there's a reason for that. Typically, I like to see at least one bathtub. It's not my house, but I like to design at least one bathroom with a bathtub in the house, because when kids, dogs, or whatever need a bath, or you're sick, you just want to soak for a while. It's always good, even if they only use it for showers 90% of the time, having that bathtub. Now, most all bathtubs are a 60-inch dimension, and so that's 5 feet. So that's 7.5 feet, not really utilizing this space incredibly well. The other thing is I noticed all the doorways come into the big room. And my concern right there would be the noise. You got a guitar player girl playing in here. You got a piano player girl right here. You got a boy playing video games or video games over here. All that noise is coming into here centrally. One of the things is this. Typically you want, there's 2 feet right here, and normally door jambs, you have 4 to 6 inches on each side. That gives you 12 inches to access the boys' room. So that is a rethink right there. Another thing I saw is a huge, by scaling it to how you drew it, almost a 6-foot by 12-foot island. Unless you're butchering a lot of animals, I think a lot of this is not going to be able to be utilized, plus the expense, and you're in a remote site. Getting somebody there, you can do that in quartz, and you can do it in multiple pieces of granite, which would be a hassle. But I think that the expense of that maybe is something to look at again. And again, I'm looking at a 24-foot wide kitchen. That's huge. Now, maybe you want the kids to do laps in the wintertime and get a little exercise in, but an 18-foot by almost 14-foot, that is huge. Maybe you have a need for that, but I would readdress that. Also, there's no window for light, for natural light that will get into the kitchen and the living room as the sun goes down at the end of the day. So here's what I drew up, and here is the plan to your scale. And what I wanted to do first is address some closets and some privacy and the noise issue. So I gave the boys, I redirected their room, but gave them, it's the exact same size. I didn't change that, but I put closets in each, the boys and the girls. You access here, and then this right here is the mud room with the washer and the dryer venting to the outside wall, and some cabinet storage and folding area. And you can still have room for a bench right here in your mud room. Previously, you didn't have enough room where you could, if the doors were right down the middle like they're drawn, you wouldn't have the room, the width that you need for a washer and dryer. This also gives you a little bit of a bench area. I also would suggest that this be where the service panel for the electrical, because that has to be within 6 feet of entering the house. So, and it also can't be obstructed for 3 feet in front of it. So that would be where I would put the service panel right here. And that accesses directly into the house. Now, you see that I moved the pantry. Now, the dimensions are very similar, but the reason why they're wider here, I realize you may have some storage idea and layout there that I might not understand, but here's just my interpretation of that. Because you're going to need a scuttle hole and access to your crawl space, and this gives you area to do that on a permanent level, rather than, I always try to avoid a scuttle hole in a primary travel area. And this gives you almost the exact same layout and storage area that you had in your design. I moved it so that there could be a window, so that if there's any commotion outside, you can see that and get natural light. I also thought that the 24-foot, just in my opinion, is very excessive for a kitchen. And I think the room in the house could be utilized a little bit different, even though I realize that you do lots of canning and cooking. See, cooking is a sport, it seems like. So this, but a 13 by 12 kitchen, a 12 by 12 is your standard, and not for a small house, but for most regular houses. And I also scaled down your island so you could have 4 foot of access all the way around, which that way there's no conflict in your appliances. And I figured this is probably not going to be a one-butt kitchen. There's going to be a lot of people, a lot of hands helping out. So this 3 feet gives you a line of cabinets and 1 foot overhang for an eat-at, and then it is also 7 feet wide. I also added, because you homeschool, I saw a need for a closet for homeschooling materials or just extra storage right here, easy access. It seems everybody congregates to the island and the kitchen anyway. This is a huge living room. While the door, I moved the door to your bedroom, didn't change the size of it, but that could be changed anywhere you wanted it to be. But I wanted to add a closet, and then I bumped into this area because I looked at your bathroom. Now, I don't understand this, but you may want furniture right here. You may want a makeup counter here. I'm not exactly sure how that was, but that's how it was drawn. And I saw this. You have less than 6 feet. Now, that means that only one side it can be utilized really for hang-up stuff. Typically, it's 24 inches to 30 inches for one line of hangers. So by doing this, I added a window also for some natural light, but it's a walkthrough from your bedroom, and there is 2 feet on each side all the way around, and then there's room in between where you can actually sit down and it's not confining. So I stole a little bit of area from your bathroom, and here's what else I did. I changed the direction. This is your shower. I moved your shower and swapped it with your water closet. I see you have a 6 foot vanity, and I assume that that's a dual vanity, dual sink. So that stays relatively the same. Now, in a water closet, you typically mandate 30 inches 3 feet is extra, and I matched this wall here, and I didn't take any room off of this. This is a 4 foot by 6 foot shower. I just switched it over and moved it to the corner. I put a bench in it, and you typically want your water on interior walls to avoid freezing. Then there's a bench, so you can sit down. And I swapped those, and so this is a 6 foot area. There's still 4 feet of area right here to walk around. And then your water closet is also 6 foot by 3 foot. And I moved this over. Here's your fridge. Now, I know you have drawn a 6 burner, and you can arrange that. Maybe the 6 burner is over here. That's just something to think about. And then the kids' bathroom right here is 5 feet wide with a tub, and it's also 10 feet long. A small bathroom is 7 feet long, so add 3 feet so you can have that double vanity for your 4 kids. Your toilet would go right here. And I don't normally like hallways because I think they're a waste of space, but it sure transitions right around the corner from your mudroom into your boys' room and into the bathroom. You can have a window here. You normally have to have a vent or a window. I like to have both, and you can get a little bit more natural light also there. I didn't want to address windows except for the window and the walkout in the girls' room. I think that you're going to have problems with buildup and flooding, or just the threshold would have water issues. And those are the things I'm looking at. And in January, when it's dark, this is how it will reflect. These things I wanted to address with you. It's going to be a big house. It's going to be a nice house. The trusses, I'm not sure where you're at on that. If you had scissor trusses, you could have ventilation run through the top, or you can have your ventilation running through the crawl space. A couple of things on that I'd like to address is a conditioned crawl space. And if you're interested in talking about that, I could talk about that for a bit. And also, I have some numbers on SIPs for you also, and I can address those if you're interested too. Pretty much, this is, as it's drawn, this is 35 squares if you're bidding that. 35 squares of roofing. And nobody builds 8-foot walls anymore, so I just made those at 9-foot walls. And I came up with 1,872 square feet. That's not including this right here, the diagonals. That is just relative numbers in comparison. And for some SIPs numbers, now SIPs runs at about $11 for a R42 wall, and airtight compared to about $8 if you do it with spray foam and build it on site. The advantages are airtightness with the SIPs versus the thermal bridging, and you get a less performance because you can't spray the entire cavity. Now, I've worked with a lot of guys that were very great builders, and I'm very confident from what I've seen with you guys and your level of finish and the standards that you set for yourselves. When I see a guy using a shovel to cut out the borders in his grass and some of the other work that I've seen you guys do, you guys have a high level of finish. I'm very confident you guys are going to be able to frame this house very competently, but it's going to take you some time. It's going to be a learning curve. I've heard it said that perfection is the reason why most car refurbishments never get finished. Sadly, you have Pure Living for Life, whose build has come to a grinding halt. Now, mental fatigue is what I'm most concerned with on your build, because you're not seeing the progress that you want to see, and your kids are living uncomfortable, and that's why I would suggest the advantage of SIPs. Now, time is really the important matter when you're looking at either a 2-year build or a 1-year build. Now, if you look at Matt Reisinger, some of his master framers are taking 2 weeks to do a 300 square foot little cottage. I have concerns about you going through the winter, and whereas you could do this by the fall, you could be in a insulated house working on the interior and your kids would not be sleeping in the barn. Now I want to talk to you about free labor, because you may be seeing that you have no labor cost here. But when you're looking at a 2-year build versus a 1-year build, and you're itching to get back to work because maybe your 401 evaporated like everybody else's did, and you're going to be wanting to get back to work as a law enforcement officer, and you're seeing that potential of $90,000 or more, that is the cost of free labor. Now let's talk about the real hard numbers with SIPs. Now, I don't represent this company and the other companies that are out there, but here is a good number. At $11 a square foot of area, which is 208 linear foot around your house, at 9-foot tall walls. The walls themselves, 1,872 square feet at $11 is $20,500. That can go up, certainly. And that can go up in about a week of your time. You know exactly what you're going to get, and rather than wonder if your framing is going to hold up, and you're working on that learning curve. And then you do your interior walls, then you roll your trusses, and I would suggest traditional trusses over the bedrooms. I know you have some ideas over the big room and the kitchen. And so there's 2 options really on urethane, which is the highest performing closed cell foam. It has a water vapor barrier and it's airtight. It is the best kind of SIPs, and these go together really well for a roof. An R42, which is the same as your walls, at $11, it would come out to an area of 3,200 square feet at $35,500, or you can go with the R54, which is like a 2x8, and that is R54 at $13 a square foot. That same coverage, the difference is $6,000, and that would be $42,000 for your roof, and that's a whole lot of area. So what you're looking at on 35 squares of roof, you're looking at in between $56,000 to build your house and insulate it with the best insulation, or $62,000 for even far surpass. I think it's twice what the code is, even though you have no adopted code in your county. These are hard numbers. They can change. You're going to have to deal with that company, but you can call them and they'll give you a real estimate. And there's some advice I would give you on dealing with some of the companies if you ask me. I just want to see you guys do well. I don't want to see this drag out where you guys have mental fatigue, you get burned out, your kids are tired of living in the conditions they are. I want to see you guys be rock stars like this, rather than the people that are down the road from you that burned out. They took some bad advice. The timber framers built to the edge of the deck, leaving no place to put the walls. They're called structural insulated panels for a reason, and they have them hanging off the walls, and they don't know what to do because of the mistakes they made, and they cannot finish that house. I think you guys can be rock stars on this. As far as like extending this for content, you guys are going to be awesome at this, and people are going to love you anyway. If you do it with SIPs, you're going to impress the entire world on how fast and how well and how energy efficient you built a beautiful home for your family and your kids. God bless you.